I don't know how to do this video without my bias towards the hatred of Kentucky that I have showing. I'm going to try my best to not show the hatred of Kentucky that I have, but it is honestly one of my least favorite, if not my least favorite track on the Cup Series schedule. It just doesn't fit at all. It's another 1.5 mile track. It's the newest 1.5 mile track they add onto the schedule, and then they repaved it and it made it even worse. It was bad before then. They made it even worse after the repave, and that is why I think that the race was, I don't know, a word to use that isn't bad and isn't good. Like, okay, decent. I don't know, something worse than okay, but not bad. Something like that, somewhere in the middle. If I had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, it would be no less than a 4, but no more than a 6. I'll just say that. It was around a middle race for me. It was one of my least favorite of the season, and that's just because of the repave. So, they repaved Kentucky 2016, and as with most repaves, it's one groove. And that's what repaves will be, one groove, and the tires just, they don't wear out, because if they try to make them wear out a little bit, then they'll start blistering, and then Goodyear reacts to that, and they make a really hard tire which doesn't wear out at all, so you cannot, you can stay out and still hold the lead, and that was kind of bad on Saturday night. So there weren't many yellows. Again, I think there was like 4 yellows, 2 stages, the 88 Bowen blew a tire, and then someone blew an engine. I forget who. But I think the last run was like 70 laps green. And on Jeff Gluck's poll, I've mentioned that so many times this season, I think it got 23% yes and 77% no. And comparing that to the races around it, right? I'll say this. Indianapolis was only 6% lower than this Kentucky race. The 2016 Indianapolis race was only 6% lower. Last season's Kentucky race, which I think was a lot worse than this one, was 4% higher. That shows how unstabilized that ranking system is. If 2016 Indianapolis can be ranked only 6% lower than this race, which actually had something happening during it, that's not right. If last season's Kentucky race is 4% higher because there was a green-white checker, which ended under caution because of a crash, why? I bet you if this race had a green-white checker finish, a yellow comes out with, say, 3 to go. If there was a green-white checker finish, and somehow, some way, someone found a way around Truex, and they say it was Blaney. If Blaney found a way around Truex, and he ended up winning the race, I bet you the poll that Jeff Gluck did would have been more 50-50 than 23-77. I bet you. Not to say that the race should have been 50-50. It was a pretty bad race. In my opinion, it shouldn't have been a 23%. It should have been more like maybe a 40, somewhere around there. It wasn't great. It wasn't anything to write home about. But I went in there with no expectations for the race whatsoever. Since I hate Kentucky, I knew it was just going to be like it was. I went in there thinking, okay, whatever happens, happens. Not expecting anything out of this. I'm expecting single file, cars sliding around because there's no grip. And I was kind of surprised. The truck race wasn't really anything great. Xfinity race wasn't any better. Cup race was a little better, but still wasn't great. But when you go in there with no expectations, you really kind of feel better after the race. For people that went in there thinking, hoping for another Chicagoland or hoping that was going to be a great race, you're out of your mind. Kentucky has never had a great race. It never will with this repave. If it's even if it has a great race, I will be shocked, and that will happen in 15 years. And that's if the track is even still on the schedule in 15 years. In my mind, they should drop this track immediately. Iowa would be so much better for the Cup Series. There's so many tracks that would be so much better. Road America, and they go to Kentucky. And they have that. I hope that they get rid of it. It's in my mind, the worst track on the schedule. I have to say that right now. Kentucky is the worst track on the schedule, in my opinion. So for people that went into that race expecting great racing and a great finish and whatnot, you were smoking something, because Kentucky's never going to provide that. until that track gets worn out somehow. The best race at Kentucky that I can remember was 2015. And even then, that was only an okay race. That wasn't even anything great. And that was, fun fact, the first race where they used the low downforce package. And everyone loved it. Everyone loved that low downforce package in 2015. 2016, everyone loved it. And now we get to 2017 and 2018, and it's bring back 2014 package. So, why? I don't know. But, in my mind, no package could have helped Kentucky. Nothing could have helped anything. That 2014 package would have made the racing worse because the bigger spoilers on the back means more downforce, which means it's harder to get to the rear bumper of a car. As hard as it is now because of how the cars are shaped, it would be even harder with the bigger spoiler. You get a great run down the straightaways, but if you're behind the guy in the corner, you'll get more aero tight if there's a bigger spoiler on the back. So that just shows how bad Kentucky is. You can only run one groove, 1.5 grooves. Now the exception was made where they made it 2 grooves. They kind of used the tire drag and they made it 2 grooves. And actually, it was pretty entertaining when Larson was battling with Truex. I thought that maybe they would have had something there. But Larson had an issue where the track bar started adjusting itself. So and he couldn't move it or else it would have kept adjusting even worse. So he had to just ride out. And he finished around 9th or 8th or something, which was still pretty good after the problem. But it was kind of sad. I thought that maybe he could have battled with Truex. It looked like he could run the middle pretty good. And Truex was just a fast car, so it would have been interesting to see how it went. But we also saw some strategy. Kurt Busch stayed out with 2 tires at a few points and led a good amount of laps on those 2 tires, but Truex actually got around him. Somehow the clean air didn't stop Truex because his car was so fast. And Keselowski did it when he was running. He was mired about 16th. Anywhere from like 13th to 16th. That's where Keselowski was mired. And he took 2 tires, got up front, led for a good bit. Truex got by him. Well, I don't think Keselowski ever fell outside the top 10 after that. So that just shows what kind of racetrack Kentucky is. I mean, even if it was before the repave, it would have been at least better because before the repave, you could have at least gone up to the wall or towards the wall. You could have gone up to a middle lane. But now with the repave, you're just stuck in 2 lanes. And that's not fun. That's why I hate repaves because it just makes it no fun for like 10 years. Charlotte was repaved 12 years ago, and I still hate that track. Because it still drives the same. The bottom is always the best. The top you can only get running during the day. And they have 1-day race there. Now it's a road course race. So it's like, they have to add the sticky stuff up onto the top lane to make it work. Another racetrack that was repaved, Michigan was repaved in 2012. It's been 6 years and it still runs the same as it did in 2013. I mean, like, after the 2012 races, 2013 on, it's been the same. Pocono was repaved in 2012. And that's still trying to get character back into the track. I mean, Texas was repaved with Kentucky, repaved in 2017 after the whole rain ordeal, and it's not really that great. It was pretty good this season, but it's still kind of like follow the leader. I don't really like repaves. But one last thing about this season, 2018, 10 years ago this season we had the original Big Three, which was Kyle Busch, Jimmy Johnson, and Carl Edwards. They accounted for, if I'm not mistaken, 24 wins that season. I believe someone had 9, someone had about 8 or 7 or something. They accounted for so many wins that season. I believe Kyle may have had 9, or Edwards. Jimmy may have had 7, and someone else may have had 8. And now we have the next Big Three. Truex, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick. Shaping up to be the same as 2008 except a different point system. Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch have won 5 races. Truex has won 4. That's 14 races that they've won. The other 3 race winners, and then Boyer has won a few as well. Then the other 3 winners were restrictor plate tracks. Shaping up a lot to be like 2008. In 2008, they had those 3 and I think 9 other winners. I think they had those 3, and then they had Boyer who won 2. I believe Biffle won 2. If I can try and remember this. Biffle, Hamlin, Stewart, Jr., Kurt, that's about as far as I can go, but there's about 3 more that actually got wins during that season. Kenseth may have, I don't remember. But point being is it's just a huge cycle. This will happen. You'll have 3 drivers that run away with it. It's a lot better than 1 driver running away with it. a la Jeff Gordon in the mid-90s winning 33 races in 3 seasons. That's an average of 11 races in a season, which is a third of the season. At some points, he won a third of the races in a season. And we should be lucky that we have 3 drivers doing it, not just one, because we all know that Kyle Busch could go out and could have won 14 races already, But since there's 3 of them, it's actually making for at least an interesting battle between those 3. Now, it would be better if there's a full season point standings, though, because it would probably be pretty close between Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick right now, and Truex would be trying to dig back in. So I really, that's kind of where this chase system is hurting, because they'll get reset and they'll just be those 3 down to Homestead with some 4th guy who may end up winning the championship. So overall, this season has been too bad. It hasn't been anything, amazing like 2016 and 2014. But with the decreased amount of yellows, right, with the decreased amount of debris cautions, with the decreased amount of yellows in the last 10% of races, it's been all right. The Daytona 500 was just crazy. It was, I think someone named it the Great American Wreckfest. So that happened. We had last lap pass Austin Dillon, obviously, and Eric Almirola got into it. Atlanta was just kind of Atlanta. I mean, sliding around, that's kind of gotten to a point where it kind of gets annoying, where when a caution comes out and it was a four-lap run, and someone stays out and others come down, that person with 4-lap tires is destroyed. I liked Atlanta better back in, if you watch Atlanta race from, the early 2000s, those races were pretty insane there, because tire wear still meant stuff, but it wasn't, everything. If you can get a track to a point where you can stay out on 5-lap tires and still be competitive, but if you stay out in 15 or 20-lap tires, you'll be bad. That's kind of the ideal track. Las Vegas is Las Vegas. Las Vegas and Kentucky may be my 2 least favorite ovals, 1.5-mile ovals on the schedule. Auto Club was kind of interesting, and then Kyle Busch's crew messed up the adjustment, which allowed Truex to pull away. If Busch's crew didn't mess up the adjustment, I would have loved to see those 2 battle it out. Other races, Martinsville was all right. I mean, it wasn't like normal Martinsville where they wrecked every time, but it was still pretty cool. Boyer broke his winless streak. Bristol was awesome. Texas was pretty good, too. You had the battle between Kyle and Harvick at the end. Richmond was pretty good. Richmond is one that kind of flies under the radar as a race that was actually pretty good. A lot of people seem to forget that the first 350 laps were good. There were, I think, the only 2 yellows were stage yellows in the first 350 laps or something like that. But the racing was pretty good. They had different leaders. Not many people got big leads. It was pretty good racing, and then the last 50 laps were just short track racing at its finest. Talladega, that's something that a lot of people want to forget about. Kansas was actually pretty good, too. The biggest lead I think I remember seeing was 3.9 seconds or something like that. It wasn't a lot. But immediately when it got that high, it closed down. And then the fact that the final 20 laps was amazing. That made that a good race. Charlotte, if you ignore the fact that Kyle Busch dominated, the battle second on back was pretty good. Pocono being there in person, I don't know how it was on TV, but being there in person, it was a pretty good race. Michigan was just kind of I don't know. I don't like Michigan a lot either. Sonoma was all right. I mean, the stage is kind of hurt road racing at this point. Chicagoland was obviously what I would call the best race of the season. And Daytona was Daytona with the stages and whatnot and the crashing with Ricky Stenhouse. But in the end, people will find a way to complain about whatever. But, Kentucky, it could have been a lot better. It could have been a lot worse with this repave. I'm not really too mad about it. Like some other people, I'm not really too down about it because I expected it coming into the race. If you were on Discord and saw my comments all throughout heading up to Kentucky, I was miserable. I was like, oh, Kentucky, single file, who loves repaves? I was making some very sarcastic comments about repaves in Kentucky and stuff. But otherwise, next week is Loudon. It's the only race at Loudon for this season, so we'll see how it goes. Normally, Loudon is either really good or really bad. It's a hit-or-miss racetrack. We'll see how it goes. Normally, this one's the worst one since it's hotter. I don't know why that is, but normally hotter tracks make for better racing, but we'll see how Loudon goes. Last season, this race actually wasn't too bad. It could have been better, but wasn't too bad. So we'll see how it goes. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.